Welcome to the Heroes of Reality podcast, a podcast about the game of life and the hero's journey we all experience. Let's jump in with our host, Dylan Watkins, as he introduces today's guest.
What up, young adventurers? Dylan here, and on today's podcast, I have John Olcer. He is a software engineer and entrepreneur. He's also the co-founder of Chimpy, powered bank sharing company, and Yeti, a plant-based cheese company. Furthermore, John was a co-founder of Kosmos School. The goal was to build a K through 12 school that existed only in VR. It did not work out, but we're going to dive into the lessons and learn from that situation and more. So without any further delay, I'd like to welcome John.
Hi,
Hey,
Dylan.
John. Welcome, brother. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you here. And this is gonna be great. I don't know if you have a chance if you can get that mic just a little bit closer to you, but I'm excited to talk to you about this for a couple of reasons. I think there's a lot of things to learn in not only the success of people's endeavors and what they go on, but things that don't ultimately work out, because you can kind of carve a path. I know we're gonna eventually all be plugged into the matrix at some point, but there are challenges and roadblocks along the way. So I first want to start out diving into that topic of what was the initial desires to create this Kosmos VR school? What was the genesis? And then what happened along the way?
Sure. Is my mic good now?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Cool. So I think so how it started is we started with a mobile app that at that time, which was like mid 2017, where I knew of VR, but I have never tried VR before. So we're in San Francisco, and then we started this company with the goal to make science more accessible to the mainstream. Just because the vision was, the more people know about basic science like physics, chemistry, and bio, the better decisions they can make in life, in politics, and so on and so forth. So after a year or so, this company, this ed tech company where we had a mobile app, didn't work out. It was so, but we weren't making any money. So in San Francisco, our roommate invited us to a birthday party of one of the founders of Oculus. And at that party, at that apartment, they had a Oculus Rift rig set up in the corner. And, I remember just the whole night just playing VR. Like, it was the climb was on. I remember, instead of talking to people, I just was in VR all the time. So that was a moment for me to say, hey, VR is kind of like the future, and especially in education. So we got to do something in VR. That's when we kind of like threw everything over and then started Kosmos School. And to answer your question, the idea was we said, what if a whole school existed, K through 12 school existed only in VR, kind of like a multiplayer game where everyone has an avatar, but unlike the real classroom, you can do really cool stuff. And for us, kind of like the kicker was what VR brings to the table that like a Zoom meeting doesn't bring to the table is social presence. And social presence, I think, is really important for education, especially for younger kids. Yeah.
So you're making a mobile app to spread awareness when it comes to science education, and then you tried VR, and like a lot of people do, you put the VR headset on, you're like, oh my god, this is incredible. How can I take what I'm currently doing and apply it into this new medium that's so powerful? There's a new opportunity, a new medium, a new way to get ahead. You then try to make a complete K through 12 focus with the Kosmos schools, and bring that in. And he said ultimately it didn't work. What stopped it from working? What was the biggest barrier that you had? Was it the the difficulty in building the technology? Was it difficulty to get users? Was it the difficulty to sustain to add value? What happened that caused you to not succeed?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, when I say we're building a K through 12 school, that wasn't. I mean, that was like the vision, right? That wasn't like what we started with. So what we started with were actually kind of like extracurricular physics classes for let's say 14 to 16-year-olds or something, like very specific. And our first class was about building a rocket. So you could build an actual rocket and then even like board it and then fly to space. And you learned all about Newton's laws. You learned about why there are different stages in rockets, stuff like that. And you could experiment with all these things in VR. And the difficulty was not so. The technology, I think, worked pretty well. So we had a couple of classes where people paid for. We had a teacher. She was a physics teacher in LA, and she was a friend of ours, and she kind of like helped us out with this. She was running the classes. Technology worked well. It was back then. It was an Oculus Go, so it was I think now in the Oculus Quest 2 it would be much cooler even. But still worked out. And the problem was getting users. It was getting students because think of it this way. Imagine no one had a smartphone, and you have a great app for smartphones. But now first you got to convince them to buy an iPhone or Android, and then to buy your app. So that's like 2 steps removed from what you actually want to do. So I think that was the main problem. I think we underestimated how fast VR would become mainstream.
So then you underestimate how fast it would become mainstream. So you feel like it's become mainstream a lot quicker than you were expecting?
Oh, sorry, overestimated.
Overestimated. I got it.
Yes,
got it. Yeah. Especially being a software developer in the VR space, you always feel like you're building a town in the desert, saying the trains are coming. Like I swear, there's something's going to come through here, and we're always waiting for that. Then the hardest thing is getting that user base, because when you build something and you don't validate that there's a market that will buy it, and especially how expensive it is to create those things, the economics don't really always add up. It's a challenge to try to do that. And it's like kind of like whenever you're going into a new space, like at some point in the future here, all schools are going to have VR. Like almost all schools have iPads. Like it's happening. But at that point, there's going to be giant studios that are dedicated to making just that content and cranking that stuff out. And so you're kind of in this weird place where you're trying to be the first one in without there being a market, which is a challenge. There's a lot of challenges for VR developers. So at what point did you recognize that there wasn't a strong enough market to support the client base that you're looking for? And then what did you do after that?
Well, I think we tried for about a year. Really getting, after we've developed the software, really getting customers, getting students. We tried a bunch of stuff. We tried paid ads, we tried teaching platforms, we tried partnering with like science museums and stuff like that. We tried a lot of things. And half of the time, kind of like, because what we offered is, if you don't have a VR headset, we will send you one out. You can keep it for the duration of the class, and then you need to send it back for free. And we just realized most people don't have VR headsets. And we tried, because we tried to, there are basically 2 different angles, 2 main angles, I would say. In our case, to acquire the students was either you find the people who have VR headsets and then kind of like hope that they have kids or are kids themselves and are looking for physics classes to take and pay for. Or you go to students who are looking for extracurricular physics classes and then in those find the ones that have a VR headset. So either way, it's a really hard road. So yeah.
Was there? It's a super hard, super niche road of making physics that people will pay for if they have a headset. If it's like it's hard to, it sounds like it's really hard because you need to have something that's either going to solve a pain, like I need to get this, I need to do this to get into college, like I need this thing for this, right? Or it's got to be so fun, like Beat Saber, that people are going to be like, this is so much fun, sign me up for it. And it's hard if it doesn't hit like the, getting me to where I want to go or being that fun. It's a hard spot to be in. And I've seen a lot of people hit that path. So I'm sure in the future that you can take another crack at trying that kind of stuff when the market gets a little bit bigger. I mean, I think we sold I think it was like 8 million or 10 million Quest units went out this year.
I read that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're getting there. The trains are coming. It's coming through. We'll get there.
It is.
So in the meantime, you shifted gears and you do a lot of things around climate change. You do a lot of things around like sustainable energy and climate change and things like that. Can you talk to me just a little bit about like what caused you to get in the whole in the other two products and companies that you have and what that looks like and how that relates to climate change?
Sure. So the first company, it's called Chimpy, and it's a power bank sharing service. So, power banks, for those who don't know, are the external chargers for your phones that you can plug up. And actually, I started a company before Kosmos School. So that was back in 2014. So what I did is I started Chimpy. After 3 years, I left, started Kosmos School, and then failed, and then went back to Chimpy. Anyways, Chimpy... Okay. The idea there is that when you're on the go and you run out of battery on your phone, you can easily go to a convenience store, like a kiosk, like a small store, and then rent a power bank. You pay a deposit and a small fee. You can use it and then return it at any one of the points that accepts the power banks. So I'm from Switzerland, and we started in Switzerland, and in Switzerland it's pretty like a known, and a lot of people use it, and we've got over 1,000 locations where you can pick up or return it. So it's very kind of like, if you use the train or public transportation, it's at every train station basically, so it's very dense, so it's very convenient, so the idea there in terms of renewable energy is that we charge all the power banks with solar energy, and also that it's a circular economy. The power banks are reused over and over again, so compared to if everyone would buy their own power bank, we just get more usage out of each power bank. So that's the idea there. And then the other company that I started after I had closed down, Kosmos School, which I started last year. It's called the Yeti Cheese, which is a plant-based cheese company. And there, it's also the kind of like the environmental aspect, but not the energy part, but the food part, which is also a very important part of climate change and important part of the solution to climate change. And I think more and more people start to realize that now. So the idea is, can we make cheese that tastes very similar to animal-based cheese, so that we can convince more people to switch over to a plant-based diet?
It's so different. Like all the things you work on are vastly different. Like you were a software developer that got into virtual reality, right? Which kind of I can make that one. Then you got into hardware, or before that, or somewhere along the timeline, you got into hardware of renewable energies, and then you got into food products and food products of making of plant based. They're very different than just straight software. What? Uh, like how did you make that leap into those different spaces if that's not your like main core ability? Like what was the can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I guess it's true. I mean, there's a software component at Chimpy at the power bank company, but
But
yeah, it's
it's
not
a
a pure
hardware
software.
it's a
Yeah,
hardware, but you're making a hardware infrastructure thing. Like, and I can
right.
see the value in
Yes,
it.
yeah,
It's like the birds, the scooters that you ride around. It's like, it's
exactly.
like it's and you're creating an infrastructure, and if you can make an infrastructure that's powerful, it's
It
very
is.
hard to
Yeah.
get. It's but the trick is the getting in it. But like, how did you do you have like thousands of chimpies stored at one location, and you're like and bringing these things out, and like you're like, it's an interesting. Um,
Yeah. So yeah, so how it works is we work together with mainly bigger retail chains.
uh-huh.
So the Chimpies go from our main storage facility. They go out to the main storage of the retail chain, and from there they already have like a fine distribution network where they distribute their goods, to the
Hmm.
single locations. Just it goes with that. The empty ones that the customers return after they've used them through the same route come back to our main headquarters, basically, where we clean them, have some maintenance, and recharge them, repackage them, and then they go out again. So basically, they're so yeah, so they always go back and forth, but we use an existing distribution system. That's why economically it makes sense, and also from an environmental perspective, the incremental logistics cost is not a lot because they're not big and not heavy. So yeah.
And then how did you get into that hardware space and then in the plant space? Like what was the
Yes, I don't know. So it's a good. So for me, I guess for me, so what I like all the projects or companies I do, it's not about. It's more about what I want to achieve. Kind of like more about the mission that I really feel strongly about, and not necessarily about the means.
mm-hmm.
So my background, I went to school for business, and then after that, like that's 10 years ago, started like an e-commerce shop, cosmetics, just because there was an opportunity. And then I had to learn PHP and MySQL because we didn't have a web shop and Shopify wasn't a thing in Switzerland back then. So I'm like, okay, I like coding, and it gets me to where I want to go. So it's more a tool for me than software engineering as a thing in itself. So I just want to go to a place and like achieve certain goals, and I'll do whatever. If I have to go into a kitchen, make cheese, plant-based cheese, I'll do it. If I have to write software, I'll do it. If I have to go to China, to Shenzhen, and visit power bank factories, I'll do it. It doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Okay. So it's just you find the mission that you're passionate about and you find the means to make it happen.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the climate change, right? Because a lot of things are around climate change, the consumption of energy, and it's also around the like ways to do it. Are there things that you'd like to see people do or get into to that would help the big move? Because there's some news that came out recently that was really like, wow, we've really sped up the timetables on a lot of this stuff. We're really good at making things happen. So what are your thoughts around that, and what you would like to see like entrepreneurs get into for that?
All right. Well, so in terms of climate change, just taking a step back, I think it is one of the most important challenges that humanity that we've ever faced as humans on Earth. And I think there are two. There are a lot of dimensions to it, right? But if I were to say what are the most important aspects, I would definitely say the first one is renewable energy or sustainable energy sources, and then the second one, which is which I think is equally important, is how we make food. So basically, livestock agriculture, which has a great negative effect on climate change. Not only in climate change, but also on loss of biodiversity, the whole antibiotics topic, and zoonotic diseases like COVID and SARS and stuff like that. So I would say if you're an entrepreneur, if you want to make a difference, look into those two areas. Definitely, food systems are extremely underrated currently, and I think there are a lot of economic opportunities. So you can also make a lot of money while doing something good. Both, but especially food systems.
So renewable energies and food systems, and what are the? Because I was in the food business for a while. I had my own food company, in that space. But what to you has been some of the challenges that you've come up against by trying to make this plant-based cheese? Like, what are the things that have been unexpected that, as you go to build it, you're like, oh wow, that's a lesson.
Mm-hmm. So before I answer your question, what kind of food company or what kind of food business were you in?
It wasn't product and consumers. It was more like catering. Like I had a food truck and a food business, and inside there I produced like barbecue sauces and other things that we sold, items from the through the catering company. So it was more of that than necessarily like packages out the door, consumer goods.
All right.
Yeah.
Still cool. Yeah. Also, don't meet a lot of people who are in VR that did food before.
Food. Yeah, it's unusual paths, right? Same thing.
Right.
I find things that are interesting, that are compelling, and then jump in as well. So it's always
it's a way to go.
Yeah.
No, a lot of challenges, as you probably know. So I had zero idea of making food before we started with the cheese. Basically, compared to making just software, there's a huge barrier to entry because you gotta figure out all the laws, all the hygiene regulations and all that stuff. You have to have like a professional kitchen where you produce. You can't just do it at home. It's illegal. The hygiene guidelines don't allow it, at least in Germany. So that was already a big barrier to entry, I would say. And I think that's one of the reasons we don't see a lot of innovation in the food space, because it's just, you can't just start you can just write an app and, deploy it in the cloud, and then people will start using it and paying you for it. It's not that easy, but, basically that's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the kind of like the regulatory thing was a big challenge.
People don't realize that when you get into the food space too, is that like when you go to make it, there's actual legal blocks that you have from actually selling it legally, and it's like, how did you make it? And it's frowned upon to make it inside your house, unless you're doing like private sales. I don't know how that is in Sweden, but like if you sell like a private person and they come over your house, you can do that way. But if you put it in like a public location for people to buy, then it's a no-go. So
it is, yeah. So I'm in Germany right now. So the food company is based in Germany, but I guess it's similar to the US or other countries.
And your power banks are in Sweden?
No, Switzerland.
Switzerland. Apologize.
Yeah.
So you're in Germany, but your power banks are in Switzerland. That's an interesting like commute to make that work.
Well, yeah. So, there are two things. The power bank company we started in Switzerland, in Zurich, but now it's in 6 European countries, including Germany.
Oh, okay.
But I've been working remotely for the last 2.5 years. So and actually I'm leaving by the end of August, so it's my 2 last weeks now. But yeah, so in the first 3 years I was there in Zurich, and then I went remote. So I've been living a couple of countries. But now we started the food business in Berlin, so that's more. I can't really move. I have to stay here, which is fine. I like it here. So just to get back to the challenges, I think. And then actually, like always, like at Kosmos School, selling the thing is often the hardest part. So selling it, we had a couple of deals. So we wanted to start by selling only to restaurants, to chefs, kind of like if you know Impossible Foods. That's how they got started with their burger, plant-based burger. Just because it's easier. There are less regulations. You don't need to have a pretty packaging. You don't need to have deals with retailers. You can just go basically walk in the restaurant and say, "Hey, I'm making this cheese. Do you want to buy it?" So the sales is more straightforward. So and then there was November last year, and then Germany they had this lockdown, so the restaurants were basically closed. And we're like, "Fuck, we can't now. It's bad timing." So we kind of like pivoted to retail, which as we thought didn't really work out, just because it's hard to get in. Once you're in the shelf with like 20 other brands. If you're like a new startup with no brand recognition, it's hard to get people to buy your stuff. So when the restaurants opened back up like 3 months ago, we switched back to restaurants. So now we're focusing on that, but it's still hard, so sales is hard. Anyone who's done like door-to-door sales knows it takes a lot of time and effort and motivation, and and then
That's one of the challenges that I don't think everybody realizes and recognizes as you build. Like people go, if only I could build this product, if only I could make this thing, everything would be great. And then they go and build it, and then they realize that the fact that nobody really wants it, or it's difficult to sell, or it takes a lot of time. There's a bunch of red tape. Like if you try to sell it to a big company, there's miles and miles of red tape, right? Or you could try to go door to door to sell it to the consumer one by one, and that's a big challenge too. Restaurants are good because if you can get in with a restaurant, then they have their own turnkey things, and it's on the menu, and then people just buy things off the menu if they have that turnkey. So it makes sense why you're doing that. It's going to be a little hard, I guess, with restaurants if they've been hit from COVID and then they're struggling, and then you have this premium product that's amazing but also expensive, and they're trying to get back on their feet. I'd imagine there's probably a little bit of a challenge there. What advice would you give to people that are maybe they're developers, software developers, anybody, and they're looking to sell the thing that they've made, right? What advice would you give to them on how to sell, whether it's plant-based items or power banks or any of this stuff? What have you seen to be successful in that area?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm not an expert salesman. I've done it out of necessity. I don't necessarily like doing it, and I don't think I'm particularly good at it, but I think I'm average. But yeah, I think people, especially people who make stuff like software engineers or entrepreneur, people focused on the making of things. Underestimate how important sales and marketing is. Basically, I think if you have like a naive view, you think, well, if I just make a good product, of course people will use it and talk about it, and it will go viral. And that does happen once in a while, but the chances that it's going to happen to you are you better play the lottery. I think you have a better chance of making money or things, whatever, winning.
Yeah.
So, I think what's surprising, and I think also a little bit sad, but if you have a mediocre product and you're good at sales, you'll go a very long way. You can go a very long way with that, which is, as a maker of things, is a bit sad because, if you look out there, there's so many shitty products, but people buy them because, I don't know, people are good at sales and marketing, and yeah, it just works.
Well, and that's the reason why I just bring it up is because it's a big, you mentioned sales and marketing being a challenge with each of the things, right? You did the VR school, right? It's difficult to find people that would buy. The power bank system, it's a difficult infrastructure thing to put in place. But once you get in one spot, you can roll that out, which makes sense, and that can spread. But then with the plant-based, it's difficult thing to sell. So this reoccurring theme is coming up with those issues, which is, by the way, I run VR communities and so I have seen I've built something and I've put so much time into it and nobody wants it. And I now have to do the thing I hate the most, which is sales. All I want to do is be behind my computer and build something. But now I have to go sell the thing. It's like, it's very difficult to make the thing and then go sell the thing. It's easy to be one side. Sometimes it's easy to sell something that you didn't make. And sometimes it's easy to make something that you don't have to sell. But it's very difficult to be the creator and the salesperson all wrapped into one boat and to be able to validate it, because it takes a lot of work on those categories. So is there any, I know you said you're not the best at it, but you're studying it, you're struggling through it, you're going through it right now. Is there any advice that you'd give to people to how they get past it? Because a lot of people are going to have that feeling that you have, that feeling that's like, I don't want to do this, but I have to do this. And I'm only doing this because I have to do this. So how do you get yourself to do the things you don't want to do, but you need to do, and it's critically important?
I don't know. It's hard because I know that I've quit too early in the past.
Sure.
So I think it's important to start selling earlier than you think you should start. Not selling, like just talking to your customers, potential customers, just start earlier with getting your thing, your product, your service out there. And yeah, you can always start earlier. And there are a bunch of reasons why people delay that. It might be that you think it's not good enough. You might be scared because, once you start talking to people and people don't like it, then reality hits, right? While you're in your little room and building stuff, you're in your perfect bubble and nothing can go wrong. And then also, it sounds stupid, but you just gotta somehow get through it. It will need, I think any product will need a couple of years until, even if it's the best product ever, you will need a couple of years until you see market success. So then don't get discouraged by early setbacks or things taking longer. And then the third thing, that's something I'm doing right now with Yeti cheese, is maybe just hire someone that's good at doing sales or doing something that you're good at and likes doing it and can help you out. I don't think, if you have the resources to do it, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always been a challenge that I've seen just in, and I'd love to hear if you had success with hiring a salesperson to go sell your stuff. Just because when I've seen like the different products and companies that I've ran, is that I've always had a challenge bringing on sales guys, because they say they're really good at selling, and they'll sell you on the selling, but generally speaking, when they come in to try to sell, there's a lot of reasons why they can't sell and the struggles that they have. Or there's a lot of I've had weird experiences with trying to have other people sell my stuff. It's like, it could be like they can do like get leads and do stuff like that, but the actual big thingies, I haven't had a lot of success with getting other people do it. Have you, because I know you say you're getting started with that. Have you successfully gotten someone that is actually producing sales for you, like a salesperson?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, that's a real concern, right? Because as you said, salespeople are good at selling, so they will sell themselves to you, and not necessarily be good at selling your product. And anyways, I think so at Chimpy we had a bunch of business development people that we hired that are great, that do a great job. And now at Yeti, we're looking to hire someone who we already worked with before at Chimpy, and who we know is a kind of like a nice person and good at their job, and will do their best and not, like fuck us over or something. But yeah, generally when hiring, especially early stage, it's always better if you hire people that you have worked with before, or that someone you trust can vouch for or something, and not hire random people, because it's hard to judge people.
Yeah, referrals are definitely the best way to go. If you know someone who's like, oh, this guy's awesome. I agree with that. So that's great. So when you got the people with Chimpy that actually help kind of create that infrastructure and move that along, that's awesome. What how did you know that they were a good fit? What gave you indicators? What have been keys that you've seen of being successful salespeople? Is there any patterns that you've noticed?
Well, I mean, this is not specific to salespeople, but like when I personally hire people, for me, kind of like the way I prioritize what I'm looking for is always kind of like the personal fit. I think is the most important, and then aptitudes, like, are they smart? Did they seem smart? Have they done smart things in their past careers? And then actual skills, because I think if you do it the other way around, which I think a lot of people do, then they might have good skills, but if the other two things, aptitude and personal fit, don't work out, then that can be learned. Whereas if there's a personal fit and if they're smart, they can learn the skills. Usually, I mean, it's, for me, like a general heuristic.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, hire someone that you resonate with, and then if you resonate with them and they're capable, they're gonna figure it out, right?
Exactly.
So you like them, they're capable, and then they'll figure out along the way. That makes a lot of sense. Ultimately, go ahead.
No, just to add to that, I think what is really important is to spend a lot of time with someone before hiring them. I know if you're hiring a lot, it's hard to do, but if you're just hiring a few people in the beginning, you can absolutely do it. It's just spend a couple of dinners, have drinks, have coffee, have lunch. Yeah, maybe like 5 to 10 hours spent with that person before hiring them, because only then you will see the real person. Slowly start to see the real person behind them. And you might think it's a waste of time, but it's not. It's not at all.
I'd love to see. I'd love to see like a Tinder for salespeople or something. You're swiping through what you're looking for. I'm looking for this, and then you start to like text them back and forth. Then you can go out. You can go on some sort of Zoom date with them and meet them. See if you resonate with them. Hey, how you guys getting along? That'd be really nice. Some a bit of some meet and greet dating. Because it really sounds like you're dating them, right? You're like, hey, if we're gonna get married, if we're gonna spend time together, I really got to get to know you. Which is like, you're talking about drinks and dinner and stuff like that. I'm like, it'd be, start swiping left and right. I don't know if it'd be like physical pictures, but maybe like what they've done. I have no idea what that would look like. It'd be interesting to see. So someone please make that. If anyone's listening to this, go make the Tinder for business, and I'll talk to you about that. I want to try it for my own personal interests. It makes a lot of sense, dude. Find people that you want, and making sure, because once they're in, they're so hard to get rid of. If you bring someone on that's bad and it has a bad culture fit, a bad personality fit, that stuff, it's a challenge to get them out. Have you had experiences where you've brought on the wrong people in business and you've been like that? What do you think are some key indicators that you maybe have messed up on picking the right person for a position?
Yeah. So luckily that didn't happen too much.
Mm-hmm.
But early at Chimpy, we had one of the first few hires was this guy who was supposed to, oversee operations, which means in our case, cleaning the power banks, maintaining them, stuff like that, like physical operations, basically. And I don't know, like we had a bunch of applications for that position, but none of them were particularly good. So we just picked like the best of the bad ones. We shouldn't have. We just should have waited, But hindsight is 2020. So basically, gut feeling. We had a bad gut feeling. We still did it. You can always rationalize things, but if you have a bad gut feeling in the beginning, you should listen. That comes from somewhere. And then, after a couple of months, we realized he was lying to us, and that was kind of like, he was performing not well, but we still tried to kind of get him to perform better, to kind of give feedback, maybe, some hope, maybe he'll get around. But then once he started lying to our face, then it's like, okay, you gotta go. That's where the buck stops, basically.
That's a hard one, man. Yeah. Lying is a big deal. Lying is huge. Some people go, they'll let it go, but like, if you have people that you can't trust, like if it makes for a lot of like, am I crazy? Is he crazy? What's going? Like, you start to question your own self when someone's lying, because you're like, I don't know if we live in the same reality. We might have some different things going on here. Okay, cool. And so, have you like gut feelings are really interesting. Like, is there ways that you tune into the gut? Are there ways that you kind of do you feel like you're an intuitive entrepreneur, that you feel in a direction, you go in that place? Can you talk to me a little bit more about gut sensations and how you apply them towards business?
Yeah. I don't know if I've got great gut feeling or not, but I'm certainly I've got a gut feeling. So basically,
I'm checking with my gut, and my gut's telling me I don't got a good gut feeling.
That's very meta. No, but the point is, I mean, gut feeling is just basically it's another word for how experienced you are, because it's not some magic. It's gut feeling usually is kind of like a sum of your experiences in that area, I think. Not only in business, but in life also, and or just your experiences and knowledge, basically. And you can be wrong, but yeah. So I think I don't know. I think I would say I have done a lot of different kind of businesses, been in different industries. I would say kind of like that I have a good intuition for business, like kind of like how you should not necessarily know absolutely this works, this doesn't work, but how you should approach problems, especially if there's a lot of ambiguity or uncertainty.
How do you approach problems? Like, you said you have a good sense for business. Is there a framework that you follow? You're saying into like, what is that? What do you mean when you say that you're good at like seeing problems in businesses? What is that? Can you break that down a bit?
I mean, I don't have a framework. I mean, I think it's important to I know. I think in general, if you, I do think I have a very analytical approach where not necessarily, I don't mean like Excel business cases, but like just like if you discuss a strategy with your business partner or with your team or something like a business strategy, then I think it's important to always because those things that are not like hard science or hard facts often get emotional or opinion based. So I think so if you're in a setting where you're discussing something, then it's always important to get back to the facts and look at the hard facts that you've maybe agreed on before, or that it's like a common knowledge. And then if you're just thinking for yourself, this is the hard part. I think the hardest part when you're an entrepreneur or when you're deciding stuff is being honest to yourself. Like, it's so easy to fool yourself, and the thing is, you don't know when you have fooled yourself or not, because at the same time, as an entrepreneur, you need to be optimistic and a bit maybe hyper realistic, but you can't be too hyper realistic. You still need to make money somehow, and convince people to pay for the product that you're making or the service. So, where do you draw the line? How honest are you to yourself? How do you get feedback from outside? How do you improve your thinking? And so, I think that's the hard part. Yeah,
that's super hard. I had a conversation with someone on the podcast once, and they said market truth over entrepreneur's ego. Like being able to like have that real, what time I forget, it's like prime information, the prime data, where like these are the facts. This is like these are the ground truths of what's really going on. And then you can have these slightly fanciful, but like if you're completely lying to yourself and deceiving yourself, and like that's the thing, is like, yeah, you're right, that the biggest problem is going to be you blinding yourself from the truth of the situation. But it's also, it's like a balance, right? Because part of it is like, by believing in something, you make that thing happen. But at the same time, you can live in a world of fantasy and it just completely crumble around you. So it's a weird bit. Let me ask you, so with this, like, what's your ultimate holy grail with these companies that you're making? Like, what are you trying to like ultimately achieve in these areas? Is there an end goal with these visions and missions you're on?
No, there's no end goal. So I think my main thing is just use my time that I have to make something meaningful and contribute in a positive way, be on the right side of history. It's not necessarily about saving the world or making the biggest contribution ever or something. So I'd be as happy if I can make a small contribution. So let's say with Yeti cheese, we don't say we will single-handedly convince every person on Earth to go plant-based. We just say we're going to make a great plant-based cheese that hopefully convince some people to go plant-based. But maybe it will be a 20-person company, maybe 100 people company, maybe 1,000 people company. Maybe we'll close down in 2 years because we realize it doesn't work. So it's not about. When I was younger, like in my 20s, I was kind of like really into this, Silicon Valley, venture capital, and you gotta either make a unicorn or it's not worth doing it mindset. Yeah. And I've tried that, I failed, and then I realized, hey, that's not a healthy way of thinking about your life and about business. because it's okay, great. There are some companies that are unicorns or have a huge, like, legendary impact on humanity. That's great, but that's one in 50 years. So instead of trying to chase that, just go with the flow, see what you can do. Maybe you're good at building a small company, and you can still have a positive impact. But in the end, it's about a balance. What's important in life. There are other things to life than just building a company. So you gotta see what's important for you, and just work on stuff that makes you happy and also has a positive contribution to society. It doesn't need to be climate change. It can be anything, like something that makes other people's lives better or happier. It doesn't matter. I don't think it doesn't matter necessarily if it makes it 20 times better or 2 times. I think anything that's positive, it's worth doing. And then you just do it, and then you see where you are, and then you continue doing it if you like it. So to answer your question, there's no end goal. It's a process.
And I mean, you're right. If you can make something that has a positive impact and is profitable, then you're already ahead of so many people. And I've seen I've had a lot of friends go to Silicon Valley and do that, climb up the mountain, and they go through all the programs. They go through Y Combinator. They go through all the different things, and then at the very end, they're like, "Here's the secret: build a profitable company."
Exactly.
Like, oh no, I gotta build. I raise all this money. He's like, build a profitable company. That's what you need to do. And it's super hard for people that want to have deep impact. People want to have meaningful impact, but they don't know how to build a profitable company, and then they're out, right? And so that's one of the big challenges I think a lot of people have. And it's like you don't have to try to. It's not like moonshot or nothing. It's like, how about anything over nothing, which is better. Is there? This has been great. Is there anything else you'd like to let people know about before you tell them how they can get a hold of you?
I think I say this to all my friends who build companies, or to all new entrepreneurs. I think, don't forget, just keep in mind, as you said, it's not about the end goal. I think it's really about the process. So if you want to build an impactful company, that's great, but also know that it will take 10, 20 years. So in the meantime, don't forget to live your life. Because just work is work, but there's more to life than work. And if you work 80 hours a week, then I guarantee you 99% of you will not make it past a couple of years without burning out or something. So then you're at zero. So rather go for a not mediocre, but moderate thing instead of going all in. It's probably not worth it. And think about who you're getting in bed with in terms of investors. I think I've seen a lot of friends who took on the wrong investors, and then it just fucks everything up.
Lots of stories about that. I have friends. It's not. You think when you get the investor, you win, and it's like just starting out.
It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It means you're good at raising money. That's what it means.
It means you just got some debt. Now go do some stuff with it. This is great. If people want to find out more about you and what you do, how do they get a hold of you?
I think the best is to follow me on Twitter. My DMs are also open. My Twitter handle is Ken Olcer, CANOLCER. I think you'll put that somewhere in the description, I hope.
Yep.
And then just write me a message on Twitter if you want to get in touch. Have a coffee chat.
Beautiful, man. I appreciate you sharing your story with us. You've got a very chill way to look at things. Like, hey, let's keep things balanced. Let's just try to do some good. I'm not going to save the whole planet by myself. I just want to be on the right side of history. So thank you for that, man. I really appreciate you putting out those good vibes and doing your part. So thank you for coming on the podcast, and I will see you in another reality.
Thanks, then.
Thanks, Ken. See you later, bud.
Yeah.
There.
Thank you for listening to the Heroes of Reality podcast. Check out heroesofreality.com for more episodes. While you're there, you can also take the Heroes quiz to find out what kind of hero you are. Or, if you have a great story and want to be on the podcast, tell us why your hero's journey will inspire others. Thank you for listening. See you on the other side.